A single flashlight beam swept across the dirt, and for half a second, it caught on something no one wrote down. It wasn't large, it wasn't dramatic, and at the time, it didn't seem important enough to stop the search. That moment passed, and with it, the truth stayed buried for years. You're watching Cold Case Secrets. Stick around, because the truth here comes from a clue nobody expected. Please subscribe, like, and comment where you're watching us from. Now, let's go back to the night everything changed. The town was the kind of place people described as quiet, without thinking about it. No headlines, no nightly sirens. The biggest complaints usually involved parking or noise after football games. That Friday evening felt no different. The teen got home from school just after 3:30 p.m., dropped their backpack by the door, texted a friend, grabbed a snack. Nothing out of the ordinary. At 7:55 p.m., a message went out. I'll be back soon. At 8:40 p.m., the front door closed. By 9:30 p.m., the phone was still active but silent. No calls, no replies. At 10:02 p.m., the last known signal pinged a cell tower less than a mile from home. After that, nothing. Midnight arrived quietly. At 12:17 a.m., the teen's parents stood in the kitchen, phone in hand, realizing something was wrong. The missing person report was filed minutes later. Police treated it as a priority at first. Officers canvassed the neighborhood before sunrise. They knocked on doors, asked about unfamiliar cars, checked security cameras mounted over garages and porches. Most footage showed nothing more than passing headlights. One camera caught the teen walking alone. No one followed. No one approached. They simply vanished between two dark stretches of road. A patrol officer later said, "It was like they stepped out of frame of reality." By morning, volunteers gathered. Search dogs were brought in. Helicopters circled low over tree lines. Flyers went up before lunch. Friends were interviewed at school. Teachers were pulled aside. Everyone was asked the same question. Did they say anything unusual? Most answers were the same. They seemed normal. They were excited about the weekend. Nothing felt off. But one detail stood out. The teen had planned to meet someone. Not a stranger, at least. Not openly. But no one could say who. Investigators moved quickly through possibilities. Runaway accident, foul play. The runaway theory faded fast. Personal belongings were left behind. Money untouched. Plans for following week are still written down. The accident theory focused on the wooded areas nearby. Then the dogs found something. A scent trail. It led away from a neighborhood past a drainage ditch and toward an old service road behind a closed manufacturing site. The trail stopped there, abruptly, as if the teen had gotten into a vehicle. 5 days later, a volunteer searcher spotted something near the edge of the service road. A backpack, lying flat, clean, undisturbed. Inside were notebooks, a charger, and identification. Nothing was damaged. Nothing was missing. A detective at the scene muttered, "This was placed here." That discovery changed everything. Now, this wasn't just a disappearance. It was a crime. Police focused on the service road. It wasn't heavily trafficked, but it wasn't abandoned either. Municipal contractors used it. Delivery drivers occasionally cut through. Detectives pulled vehicle records. They interviewed registered contractors. One man caught their attention. He had access. He knew the area. And his timeline didn't quite line up. He was questioned twice. Calm, cooperative, no physical evidence tied him to the teen. After weeks of pressure and no proof, he was released. The file moved on, and slowly, so did everyone else. Months turned into years. Search efforts scaled back. Media coverage dried up. New cases demanded attention. The teen's bedroom stayed untouched. A jacket still hung on the chair. A calendar stayed flipped to the wrong month. A hook on the wall sat empty where a necklace used to be. No one noticed that last detail. At least not yet. By the third year, the town had stopped saying the teen's name out loud. Not out of cruelty, out of exhaustion. People still remembered. They just didn't know what to say anymore. The missing posters faded first. Sun-bleached, torn at the corners. slowly peeled off utility poles and grocery store boards. Then the searches stopped. Police departments don't announce when hope runs out. It just quietly happens. Detectives retire. Assignments change. Files move from desks to shelves. And one disappearance becomes a cold case without ever being called one. Inside the family's home, time refused to move. Birthdays passed without celebration. Holidays came with an empty chair. Every knock at the door still triggered the same thought. Maybe this is it. A relative later described the waiting like this. You don't grieve. You hover. You live in a permanent pause. They replayed the night again and again. The last text, the unanswered calls, the moment midnight arrived. They asked the same question every parent asks in cases like this. What did we miss? Inside the department. The case sat in a gray area, officially open, functionally dormant. A detective who worked the original investigation later admitted, we followed procedure, but procedure doesn't always find the truth. There were doubts. Why was the backpack clean? Why that location? Why no witnesses at all? But doubts aren't evidence, and without evidence, nothing moves. Nearly 8 years after the disappearance, the department conducted a cold case review, not because of a new lead, because of a policy change. Old cases were being reassigned before a wave of retirements. That's when the file landed on a new desk. A detective known for being methodical, quiet, relentless in small details. She didn't start with theories. She started with paper. She read every report from start to finish. Not skimming, not summarizing. Reading the early search logs, volunteer notes, officer observations written at 3 a.m. after long shifts. That's when she noticed something strange. A sentence buried deep in an early search report. Possible personal item observed near service road. Not collected. No item number. No description. No follow-up report. Just one line. Most people would have skipped it. She didn't. She checked the evidence inventory. The backpack was logged. The phone was logged. Clothing items were logged. But nothing matched that line. No personal item. No photograph attached. No explanation. That bothered her. In cases like this, everything is evidence or it isn't. There's no in-between. She requested the original digital files from the search teams. The department archived thousands of images during the first week alone. Most were poorly labeled. Ground, tree line, ditch. Hours passed as she clicked through them. Then she stopped. One image caught her eye. A flashlight beam cutting across dirt and gravel near the service road. The photo was grainy, slightly tilted, and near the bottom edge, almost cropped out with something small. She zoomed in, then zoomed again. Her breath caught. It was a necklace, partially buried, catching just enough light to reflect. Not shiny, not obvious, but unmistakably human. She cross-referenced the family's missing item list. There it was, a necklace the teen wore daily. Never recovered, never logged in, never tested. The detective leaned back in her chair and said quietly, "How do we miss this?" She went back to the original search logs. That area had been searched at night. Volunteers rotated quickly. The lighting was poor. Pressure was high. The focus was on bodies, weapons, signs of struggle, not small personal items. One officer had likely seen it. I noticed it and moved on because no one realized what it was. The detective didn't announce her discovery right away. She confirmed it first. She brought the photo to the family. The reaction was instant. That's theirs. No hesitation. No doubt. The clasp, the scratches, the chain length. It had been a constant presence in every photo. And it should never have been there. The necklace answered a question investigators had debated for years. Where did the disappearance turn into a crime? The backpack had been placed. The phone had gone silent. But the necklace told a different story. It came off during a struggle at that location. That meant the teen hadn't left willingly. And it meant the truth was still there waiting. The site was reopened for the first time in nearly a decade. This time, there were no volunteers, only forensic teams. They moved slowly, measured steps, photographed everything, collected soil, plant matter, fibers. Technology has changed. What once required perfect conditions now required patience. Within hours, they recovered the broken clasp fabric fibers caught in brush traced biological material beneath where the necklace had been. Enough, not for answers, but for science, while lab results were pending. The detective reviewed old interviews. One name resurfaced: the municipal contractor, access to the road, knowledge of the area, clear without physical evidence. She read his statements again. This time, they didn't sound the same. Small inconsistencies stood out, not lies, but omissions. DNA testing took weeks. Every day felt heavier than the last. The detective avoided predictions. She simply waited. Then the call came. The DNA was viable, and it matched someone already in the system. The lab result came in on a Tuesday morning. No dramatic knock, no announcement, just a phone call. The forensic analyst didn't hedge. The DNA profile is clear. It's a match. The detective closed her office door and sat down. For nearly 8 years, the case had been built on theories. Now it is a fact. The DNA didn't belong to the teen. It belonged to a man who had already been questioned and dismissed during the first weeks of the investigation. A municipal contractor. Someone with legitimate access to the service road. Someone whose presence there wouldn't have raised alarms. Someone who knew exactly which areas were poorly lit and rarely checked. Back then, there had been nothing tying him to the scene. Now there was. With the DNA match confirmed, detectives rebuilt the night minute by minute. Traffic camera footage was re-examined using updated software. Cell tower data was reprocessed with tighter radius mapping. Work logs were compared against GPS records for municipal vehicles. A pattern emerged. The contractor had been in the area longer than he claimed, and he had lied about when he left. Not dramatically, just enough. He was brought in again, this time under very different circumstances. Same interview room, same metal table, different tone. The detective placed a photo of the necklace on the table. Then the actual necklace was recovered, cleaned, and sealed in evidence packaging. Then the DNA report. No accusations yet, just silence. Minutes passed. He stared at the table. Finally, he spoke. I didn't take it on purpose. That was the moment, not a denial, an explanation. Once he started talking, the story came out in pieces. He said he'd encountered the teen near the service road. They appeared upset, lost, in need of help. He offered a ride. At some point, things changed. An argument, an attempt to leave, a struggle. The necklace broke. Panic followed. He admitted to assaulting the teen and leaving them unconscious. He claimed he didn't know what happened after. The evidence said otherwise. Soil samples matched damage found on recovered clothing fragments. Fibers linked the scene to his vehicle. DNA placed him at the exact spot where the necklace fell. Every piece fits, not one on its own, all together. Because of the overlooked necklace, investigators finally identified the exact location where the crime occurred. That truth directly linked the suspect to the scene and proved the teen never left willingly. One missed detail didn't just reopen the case. It exposed a lie that kept it cold for years. The case went to trial the following year. There was no spectacle, no outbursts, just facts laid out carefully. Prosecutors centered their case on one argument. This wasn't about what was suspected. It was about what was ignored. The defense tried to cast out. They pointed to the time gap, the years between collection and testing, the absence of witnesses. But the necklace told its own story. Silent, unmoving, unarguable. After less than a day of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict. Guilty. The courtroom stayed quiet. No cheers, no relief, just the finality of truth catching up. The contractor was sentenced to decades in prison, not as closure, as accountability. The judge addressed the family directly. This case reminds us that justice delayed is still justice owed. Closure doesn't look like movies. It doesn't erase years. It doesn't fill empty chairs. But it answers a question that haunts every cold case family. what really happened. Now they know, and knowing mattered. The necklace now sits in an evidence archive, labeled, cataloged, seen. It never spoke, but it never needed to. It waited. After years of silence, the truth surfaced, and the story was no longer the one everyone thought they knew. Thanks for watching Cold Case Secrets. If you want more cases like this, subscribe and check the playlist. Every file here has a secret.